First, if the traditional fault lines of Britain have always been defined one way or another by class, in the United States they are often also defined by race. Now, you might think that in the 21st century, with an African-American president, racial barriers have been destroyed or are in the process of eroding. But every so often, something catches the attention and in which race becomes one of the persistent subplots in American life, although, as we'll discuss in a moment with Dr. Cornel West, it's mixed with stories of rich and poor. Well, earlier this week, the extraordinary rescue of young women, apparently held captive for years in Ohio, led to the man who helped free them, Charles Ramsey, give this account of what happened.
I knew something was wrong when a little pretty white girl ran into a black man's arms. Something is wrong here.
Well, Dr. Cornel West is a philosopher, a writer, an academic, and never short of some thoughts on this subject. He joins me now. Dr. West, very good to see you.
Good to see you, my dear brother.
Now, that was just a little thing, but it really caught my eye. What did you make of that kind of comment?
No, I think he's speaking from his soul. I think in the United States we've made tremendous progress in terms of black elites having access to unprecedented opportunities. But in terms of the black working class and the black poor, including white, red, and yellow poor and working classes, they have been devastated by the policies of the last 30 years or so.
The policies, all the policies. I mean,
it goes back to Reaganism all the way through Clinton, because you financialize at the top with the oligarchic economy, greed-driven, obsessed with profits by any means, and then you've got privatizing of public education, privatizing of public prisons, and then you got militarizing, where you, of course, the national security state expands, drones dropping bombs on innocent people, those are war crimes. You've got attacks on whistleblowers. Brother Julian Assange, I was blessed to talk with him this week. Bradley Manning, these are other very courageous folk dealing with, trying to tell the truths about the secrets and dirty wars. And so
would you say that all, those things clearly matter deeply to you, but
absolutely.
Things like, you've got an African-American president, which I suspect you never thought you'd see in your lifetime.
I never thought.
You had a lot of white people who voted for him.
Absolutely.
You've got a lot, in
Absolutely.
2008, a lot more African-American voters came out and voted as a percentage than ever before.
That's right.
So some things have changed a lot for the better, haven't they?
There's no doubt there's been progress, my brother. And I was blessed last night to be at University of Sheffield. We had a magnificent memorial for Malcolm X. I was invited to Cambridge University, my dear brother Simon Goldhill. I had dialogues with Paul Gilroy, dialogues with M. McKay, dialogues with my dear brother Ben Okri. And the result is what? Unbelievable progress on one level, but Malcolm X used to say, you don't stab folk in the back 9 inches, pull it out 6 inches and celebrate your progress.
And that's
you
where you
got
think
poverty. I mean, in the States, we got poverty. I mean, I've
Yeah.
just read the Institute of Fiscal Studies here, where you got policies that are going to push 1 million precious children here in Britain into poverty too.
Why are you disappointed with Obama? Because you supported him in 2008, and you said of him more recently, April 2011, you said he was a black mascot of Wall Street oligarchs and a puppet of corporate plutocrats. That's a bit rude.
No, just trying to tell the truth. It might be a bit provocative, but it's not hateful. It's just biting, because I was so deeply disappointed. When I first talked with my dear brother and supported him, I did 65 events for him the first time. My question was, what is your relation to the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., Fannie Lou Haber, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, and Dorothy Day? We talked for 4 hours. And he gave me the impression that he was coming out of this tradition in a significant way. Well, when I look at Martin King, he died carpet bombing in Vietnam. Those are war crimes then. Drones today, war crimes again. Poverty is trying to organize poor people. Not a mumbling word about poverty. We have the highest levels of poverty since 1960 in this regard.
Are you saying Obama is actually responsible for war crimes? Is that how you see it?
I think that they commit war crimes when they meet on Tuesday and have a killer list. And if they did it once or twice and said, my God, we got collateral damage, yes, but we've got over 4,000 innocent civilians dead and over 219 innocent children dead. They strike me as war crimes. I'm old school in this. I said the same thing about George Bush, same thing about Barack Obama, same thing about any head of a nation state that use instrumentalities of violence to kill innocent people. Yes.
We touched on some of the things which you accept have improved, and if improved in your country, have improved here. What about racism itself? Has that changed?
I think on an individual, interpersonal level, it is much better. That's a beautiful thing. You all in Britain have the flowering of these wonderful personal interpersonal relations and so forth. But institutional racism is still at work in the United States, just as institutional racism is still at work here in Britain. So really, we're always talking about race, class, gender, and empire, and sexual orientation as a way of trying to keep track of the humanity of people.
Would you also, though, accept that some people use race as an excuse? I mean, there was Lauryn Hill the other day, that, you know, the singer who's 3 months for tax evasion. She said, "I'm a child of former slaves who had a system imposed on them. I had an economic system imposed on me." She fiddled her taxes.
I think
that's silly, isn't
she's
it?
stretching too far. I mean, she's a great artist, but she's stretching too far. No doubt about that.
So where are we now then? How do you see, you know, you're disappointed in the first African American president. Many people think he's a lot better than some of the alternatives.
He was better than the right wing.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
But so where do you think we are now? Where do you think we're going now in the United States?
Well, I think in my country, which is both a very precious experiment in democracy and also an adventure in empire, that we're in a very, very bleak place, because we have a choice between a far-right party and a centrist neoliberal party, and we don't get to kind of focus on, I mentioned poverty before. You got 22% of American children living in poverty, 40% of red, 40% of brown, 40% of black children living in poverty in the richest nation in the history of the world. That's morally obscene. 1% of the population owns 42% of the wealth. The top 400 individuals have wealth equivalent to the bottom 150 million. That's spiritually profane.
So do you? I mean, I'm interested that a lot of your conversation has been about class rather than race.
That's true. That's true.
But that does not mean, in any sense, that the many racial questions which you've talked about in your lifetime are solved.
That's exactly right. But for me, brother Kevin, it's about how do we try to be decent, honest, and have some integrity in a moment in which so many people are suffering, no matter what color, no matter where they are. And we're living in a moment now where people are more and more indifferent to forms of criminality. We've gotten used to certain kinds of forms of criminality, so we overlook. And we become more and more callous to catastrophe, impending ecological catastrophe, economic catastrophe for our working people here, wrestling with immigration, our precious Eastern European brothers and sisters, our precious black immigrants. Are they being treated with dignity? Those are the kind of questions. And neither party in either country are really speaking with them, I think, with the level of passion that a Martin Luther King Jr. would want.
Dr. West, thanks very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
You stay
Nice
strong, brother.
Thank you. Now let's have a quick look at tomorrow morning's front pages. The